Welcome, everybody. This is the Disability Power Series, where we honor our power as disabled people and share our stories. I'm David Gaze. I'm a 2022 Disability Lead Fellow. And an image description of me is I'm a white male with brown hair and a burgundy shirt and cerebral palsy. I use a wheelchair, and I'm coming to you from my home office. And today I'm very happy to be joined by 2020 Disability Lead Fellow, Beck. Bree, could you introduce yourself, please, and give an image description? I'm so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me, David. It's awesome to be here. My name is Beck. Like David said, I'm a 2020 Disability Lead Fellow and now a Disability Lead member. An image description of me is I am a white woman. I have brown wavy hair. I'm wearing glasses that are like a tortoiseshell pattern and headphones over my ears that are gold. I'm wearing a green sweater, and I am in my home office slash random activity room where we have lots of books and art supplies and things just sitting around. Yeah, just looking forward to this conversation.
Me too, Bree. Very much so. So you're a disabled woman and a licensed clinical professional counselor. And I'm curious, what inspired you to go into that profession, and what do you like about it? And why is it meaningful and important to you? Because that's very unique, I think.
Definitely. So being a therapist was never necessarily my plan growing up. I'm an art therapist specifically. So I will say I've always loved art. And I went to college and had my heart set on being a graphic designer and really putting out into the world through that way. But as I started to go through school and grow, I started to feel this longing to really do different things with art and support others, and go more into the human services profession. And I chose to be a therapist because I, as a disabled person, have had my own experiences with mental health difficulties, specifically related to medical trauma. So I'm a person of short stature. I live with a form of dwarfism, and a lot of my upbringing had to do with just a lot of hospitalizations, constant surgeries from the age of basically 4 to 16. And I think for a lot of us disabled people, those of us I can speak to at least with physical disabilities, who grew up physically disabled, I don't believe there was a whole lot of emphasis on our emotional and psychological well-being, with so much emphasis placed on like our bodies and everything that needed to be, all the procedures that at least I had to have growing up. So as I became a young adult, I started to have a lot of experiences with anxiety, depression, and really started to really think about how the mind and body are interconnected. So I went to therapy for the first time, and it was a life-changing experience. However, I really felt like there wasn't a whole lot of knowledge about disability. And my therapist was amazing, but she just didn't have a lot of training in it. And there didn't seem to be a lot of training or trained therapists out there at the time. So I thought, I think I'd really like to be a therapist, and I'd really like to work with disabled people, and really represent that identity and support others with their emotional health, particularly when it comes to living with disability or having some form of medical trauma.
Mm. You bring up a really important point, I think, and that is as I myself am a physically disabled person too, and I have cerebral palsy, and I do think, and I've had a lot of surgeries like you as well. And I do think our lives tend to be very medicalized. I mean, we those of us with physical disabilities, by necessity, we have to focus on our physical condition.
Right.
So I'm curious, like I'm just curious as a disabled person, what does it mean, like, to take care of one's mental health, like as a disabled person, based on your personal or professional experience, and how do you go about doing it, like in your practice or in your personal life or wherever? So.
Yeah, I think, like you echoed a point that I made, and I'm glad that you resonate with the fact that like our lives as physically disabled people are so medicalized, and there's so much need for like rehabilitation and support for the body, and not that that's not important, but our psychological health tends to be put on the back burner. So I think as a disabled person, no matter what your disability is, whether it's non-apparent, or if it is more physical, or if it's more psychological, or even related to mental health, prioritizing psychological and emotional well-being is so important. I think a lot of disabled people deal with similar issues, things like internalized ableism, carrying a lot of shame, and feeling like um, we've just received so many messages that we're not good enough, or that this world isn't built with us in mind. So there's a lot of negative self-talk that can occur. And a lot of that also comes from representation, how we're seen in the media, and just like negative messaging all around when it comes to disability. So disabled people can absolutely find support and healing, often through building community, through telling their stories and connecting with other disabled people, and really, yeah, being bold with who they are in the world, and remembering that their existence is important, and it's a form of resistance in and of itself. Whoop, excuse me, my phone was
Mhm,
falling there. Um, but
mhm,
yeah, and going to therapy is so huge as well, and really taking time and space to process your lived experiences. I think we go through a lot of things that we just normalize that really just are not okay. So having someone to support you and validate you and what you go through, and remind you that you're holding a lot,
mhm,
and to prioritize your well-being, to ask for your accommodations that you need instead of trying to push through. Um, yeah, there's so many things I can speak to, but
mhm,
I think that that covers a good bit of it.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I love how in your bio, in your website, you describe yourself as a collaborator and not an
Mm,
all-knowing expert. So I'm curious about, like, you touched on that, creating a safe space to talk through things. I'm curious how you go about creating that space as a professional. Like, what are some of the techniques you use, or how do you do it, if you feel comfortable sharing?
for sure. Many healthcare providers, therapists, doctors, I think, understandably need to present themselves as an expert in their field, because people are coming to you for support. They're looking for guidance, they're looking for help. But as a therapist, even though I'm coming to the room with an education and some skills to offer, I also want to always make sure that my clients know that I am not the expert of their lives, they are. And my job is to create a safe space for them to feel like they can be safe to share whatever it is that they need to, feel empowered with their own experiences and who they are. And I do that a lot by hopefully offering a warm presence, and also doing an appropriate amount of self-disclosure myself. So being pretty transparent with, my own lived experiences when it's appropriate to share them, making sure that they know that they're not alone, normalizing their experiences through referring to, not necessarily by name, but just recognizing that, yes, I've heard this story before, maybe from another client, maybe from a friend. Um, because I think, again, going back to that shame piece, there's a lot of things that not just disabled people but that all of us carry, that we feel like we are the only ones that feel this way, or the only ones that think these certain thoughts. And so, yeah, I think by showing up as fully human as a therapist, that's my number one goal. And I find that when people feel safe, they feel like they can really share anything and come to a lot of their own conclusions,
Mm,
with me
mm,
just helping to guide them and offering them any sort of evidence-based skills that I can,
mm,
from my background and my expertise.
mm. It's interesting because listening to you, I get this, and you say people are not alone. Because listening to you, I get the sense that community is like, or community or solidarity. I don't know what the right word is, but
Yeah, both of
that word
those
comes to mind.
things.
Yeah, I think that's real important.
Absolutely.
So, and one of the other things I found interesting, like in your among many things about your writing, is you say that mental health not only affects us personally, but it's shaped by all of our identities, the identities that lead us to privilege, or 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 that can lead to us experiencing oppression, and that we all have both of them, and you're very honest about your own identities and privilege. And could you just expand on, like, how how all of our identities, or the totality of us as a person, shape our mental health. And how did you become? I'm curious how you became comfortable in expressing and being vulnerable with your own personal identity in terms of how it connects with mental health, because I think that's a really good skill to have. Or so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we all carry many identities. They all intersect in various ways, from our class to our race and our gender identity, our disability identity, of course. And no matter, however far away we fall on the identity kind of wheel, as if, there's a central point of quote unquote like normality, right? And
Yeah.
um, there is being in the majority, right, or even the most close to average. And the more we fall away from this idea of average, which isn't always, it's not even a thing, right, or normal isn't a thing, the more we can experience oppression just based on how we're treated by other people, the way that we feel like we do or do not belong, the way that the systems support us or don't support us in providing support. Um, so in other words, the more marginalized we are, the more that can really impact our mental health. And a lot of that comes through just systemic trauma, interpersonal trauma, not having the resources that we need to support our own well-being. And so I believe very much that therapy is a political profession, and we have to take our clients' identities and lived experiences in their social world into the picture just as much as we would anything else. Um, and I can only speak to how like my experiences of being marginalized or othered have really greatly impacted my self-concept and my ability to participate or not participate in the world. I've faced job discrimination, difficulty accessing certain forms of education based on the accessibility. I've experienced challenges related to sexism as a woman, but I also have to recognize a lot of the privilege that I carry, being a white person, being somebody that was able to access higher education, being able to be fully employed. So all of those ways also make me privileged as well. So I have to be very open about that and transparent in the therapeutic relationship. And um, I think, yeah, that's part of building that rapport, right? Is being open and noting where I may have experiences where I can relate and experiences where I don't.
Mhm. That's interesting to me that you describe your profession as you describe it as a political. Do you find like you have to advocate you have to advocate for your clients, or speak on their behalf for their causes, or they become your causes almost?
I do a lot of supporting clients with their own self advocacy, at least from my position. But outside of being a therapist, I've been involved in the Chicago disability art and culture scene and have used my own art practice as a form of activism. I've worked with Access Living, who they do a ton of amazing advocacy work and writing policy. So I try to stay informed and on top of bills that are going on, particularly at the state level, and try to sign things, be a witness, and promote certain legislation that's going through. But as a therapist, I really enjoy supporting folks in advocating for themselves at school or at work, helping them understand their rights, making sure that they are informed about like the ADA and what they are entitled to as as a citizen under the ADA in terms of workplace accommodations at school, and I help them try to get the proper documentation and find the right, even medical professionals to help them get those accommodations as well. So I think having knowledge of systems um, and how to navigate them for me is really important as something I can offer people who may need a little guidance.
Good for you. That's so important, and thank you for talking about that. You also you touched on this. You describe yourself as an art therapist who helps people explore their feelings, emotions, and trauma. And could you just describe for people who aren't familiar what is art therapy, and how do you find it helpful, like in addressing mental health from a disabled perspective, for disabled people specifically? So.
For sure. Yeah, art therapy is an amazing field. I feel like it's a field that's kind of just in the last decade or so has caught a lot more notoriety and attention and has gotten a lot more uh, it's taken more seriously, I guess is
Mm,
a way to put it. Art therapy is a form of psychotherapy, and I, coming from an arts background, prior to becoming a therapist, um, I find it to just be not, not like its own thing, but as a way to enhance all forms of therapy. So what I mean by this is being an artist myself helps me to just be creative as a therapist overall and think of different interventions and think of metaphors and different ways to help folks understand their lived experiences. But art therapy is really, using art materials in art. There's creative arts therapies, which that can include dance, music, drama. But art therapy, specifically, what I do is more about visual art, or at least using visual art materials to create a physical product. So, a way to think about art therapy is that you are helping a client uh, tell their story without talking, or
mm,
using the elements of art, such as color, symbol, texture, uh, uh, anything to bring their lived experiences to life, and even in a new way that often words fail to do. Art making in and of itself is therapeutic, so that alone is therapy. But art therapy goes beyond that and helps folks express their emotions, put it on paper or into whatever form they may like. That could be quilts, that could be sculpture, it could be photography or digital media, and help them gain more insight, or even express what they're trying to say and share it with another person. It can be really powerful in helping folks process trauma, because trauma is stored in our brain through imagery. So if we can access those images and express them and move them outside of us, it can tell the brain, hey, this isn't actively happening anymore. It can help a person move forward from that trauma instead of being stuck in that re-traumatized state.
mm,
So there's a lot of neuroscience, reasons why art therapy is so powerful, particularly with trauma. Um, the way it helps us ground while we're making art. But really, I see it as a way to really enhance therapy, and I try to offer it to folks, even if they come to me primarily for talk therapy, when it feels right, because
mm.
it just adds so much more dimension and more understanding outside
Yeah,
of just speaking.
yeah. I love being able to process without the spoken word. That's really powerful. Um,
Yeah, because often words don't cut it.
yeah. Do you have any do you have any examples of art therapy to share? You don't have to, but if you have anything, any of your own artwork you'd love to share, um, that would be great.
For sure. And I think you asked a question in that last question related like why it can be powerful for the disability community as well. And I think um, for me, I have put a lot of my disability experience into my artwork, and I have found that to be both powerful for me to make art from something that for me has been a challenging or painful experience, and not only to create that art, but to share it with others. So back when I first started grad school and was really delving into art therapy and making art for my disability for the first time, um, I can share an image of this later, but um, would do things like take the parts of my body, such as my legs, where I had a lot of surgeries, and I would paper mache, put paper mache on my legs and create sculptures from those forms, and I would make art from those shapes. Or I once made a chair out of PVC pipe and bandages that fit my body, because a lot of furniture that I sit in doesn't fit my body. So art has been a powerful way to really create my own world and um,
Mm,
yeah, take things that haven't existed before, um, and especially that were inspired by, again, challenges that I've been through that don't always have the most positive connotation. But I've been able to turn them into something brand new or something beautiful. And I've been able, again, to connect with other people and build community from sharing my art. And that's
Mm,
something that I like to do as a therapist too, not only with individual clients who may have disabilities who want to make art from their disability experience and maybe see it in a new way, but to also offer to disability community as a way to connect with one another.
mm, mm. So many, so many, so much value, some purposes for therapy. Wow. Um, so let's see. Um, so switching gears a little bit. Um, we just came. Our society just came out from a long and challenging, contentious election season where many disabled people feel exhausted or scared or anxious for our lives and our future. So I'm curious, how, as a mental health professional, do you have any recommendations about how disabled people, how we can prioritize and take care of our mental health during this challenging time?
Definitely. I can relate. I'm also very exhausted and I am nervous. There are a lot of unknowns on the horizon, and there's a lot of resources that um, have been being threatened for a long time, such as Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Um, I'll even just speak to like dignity and how it feels very much like disabled people's dignity feels so on the line right now in terms of how our president elect has talked about the disability community and their worth. Um, but I will say that disabled people have been doing community and mutual aid and interdependency for a very long time. And disabled people are extremely resilient. And we know how difficult systems are to navigate. And we know that in so many ways, our political systems don't value us and that we have to find, um, or we have to stand in our value and our worth, not only as individuals, but as a collective. And my hope for the disability community is to continue to um, be interdependent with one another and to show up for each other with our gifts and our strengths, um, and to do as we always have done, like we did when we were in the pandemic and the height of the pandemic. And here in Chicago, I was part of a mask delivery team and put a bunch of masks in my car, and there was a whole spreadsheet that another woman in the disability community had made. And I think disability community members are savvy and creative. Um, and I think we're going to need to rely on each other more than ever in the years ahead. Um, so I just encourage people to remember what their lane is, remember what their gifts are, and to really just lean into that because right now it feels like we have to do everything. And the truth is, you just have to do what you do best and do it with
Mm,
joy. Um,
mm,
and remember that you're not alone and just to yeah get more involved and um, I think yeah I'm looking forward to seeing the resiliency, even though I'm not looking forward to seeing any sort of hardship that will create those conditions of having to be resilient.
mm. So along those lines, what gives you power as a disabled person? Like, where do you turn? What does disability power and leadership mean to you? Where do you turn for power and strength as a disabled person?
That's a great question. I've been trying to do that reflection myself that I just offered to others, like thinking about what are my strengths and what is my work, particularly in the years ahead. Um, and I think for me, I've been reflecting on how I have had to be so innovative and resilient over the course of my life. And I've had to make things work that probably shouldn't have ever worked out. Um, making spaces that work for me, um, and building networks of people that I can rely on when I can't physically do something. Um, and I think from that, it's given me a lot of wisdom, and it's also given me, um, yeah, a sense of connectedness. And I'm going to use spirituality as a word here, but not necessarily in the religious sense, um, but a sense of faith and hope. Um, and my role, I think, in the years ahead, or hopefully for my career, is to continue to be a source of love and compassion, and helping others heal, and being with them in their pain, helping facilitate spaces where folks can be real and honest and creative, and step into their own power. So um, I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yes,
I feel like I
absolutely.
find my power in just like what I've been through, and the evidence of the strength I've had to build, that I have that for the road ahead too.
Thank you. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Um, so to I like to end on a lighter note. Like for you spend so much time helping others address their mental health. How do you care for yourself? Like how do you relax and unplug? And what do you like to do for fun? So what do you how do you unwind?
For sure. Um, I have a dog, and he is my best friend. So my little dog Henry and I, we do a lot together. We go to the park multiple times a day, and we look at the water. We talk to neighbors. You know, we're big in the dog community here in the city. So I love dogs, and I love spending time with dogs. I love making my own art. I love listening to music really loudly, podcasts, and I enjoy talking to friends. I enjoy driving in my car and just kind of driving and listening to music. I love thrifting. I love to go to
Mm.
all the Chicago thrift stores and just find cool stuff. So yeah, I just like quirky things, and yeah, nothing super special, but I enjoy the simple things in life. And my husband is a film guy, so he teaches me a lot about movies, and um, yeah, I love learning new things, and yeah, taking in a lot of art.
Cool. Cool. What kind of dog is it?
He's a Chihuahua mix.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's sweet.
but
Cool.
he's very sweet. He's not super barky. He's he's
Mm,
he's very quiet.
mm. Oh, that's dogs are great. I have
They're
one
the
dog too.
best. You have a dog?
Yeah. So is there anything? Is there anything else you'd like to add? Even on
Hmm,
this, anything that I didn't touch on that you'd like to say or add as we wrap up?
that's a good question. I don't think so. I feel like we covered a lot. It's especially important to talk about this moment right now, what's going on in the world, because it's saturating everything. Um, and it's a time to really yeah, to look deeply inward, but also look what's right in front of us, and connect with what we have, and take stock. And I'm really grateful for the city of Chicago, and I'm grateful for the amazing disability community that's here. And I have so much gratitude for so many other leaders and activists and folks such as yourself, David, who are doing like amazing work. I know I could ask you so many questions about your work in terms of disability, and spirituality, and religion, but I know that's might be for another time. But yeah, just grateful to be a part of this great network.
Anytime, Brian, and I'm grateful to call you as a friend. And thank you for doing this, and thank you for all you do for our community. And it's been really great talking with you.
You too, David. Thanks so much.